Well, it's been going 91.5 and you're listening here to Tony Graham in Studio 2 with Matthew Dickerson, and we've got Tech Talk. Good afternoon, Matthew.
Good afternoon, Tony. I've been waiting all day to chat to you again about technology. It's always exciting to talk to you about technology.
Yeah, I've been twiddling my thumbs all morning waiting to get to the afternoon. I've been so excited. Now, let's get off with the first one, and that's about bushfires, which is, on our landscape, that's a really, really pertinent topic, and it's really important, if not disturbing. And there's been a lot of controversy about technology in relation to managing bushfires. So one of the really important things is predicting the path of a bushfire. And there's developments there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really interesting issues around that whole development of where the path of a bushfire might go, looking at the wind, looking at the land conditions, all the rest of it, there are different standards in each state and different models that are used in each state. So when you get to the point where you've got a bushfire that's near any border, in a border town or in a sort of border areas, the two different states might have different views on where the bushfire might go. And so you kind of get these confused firefighting crews because one firefighting crew on one side of the border says we should go in this direction. Across the border, they're saying, no, we should go down this direction. So there's been a lot of work put in to develop a national bushfire model and also to make it better. And I suppose that's the critical part there. Who knows which state had the better model? It's very easy in hindsight to look back and say, aha, this state was better than that state in terms of that planning. But really, let's put all that information together. I've often said that we're too small a country in terms of our population to have the states the way we have them set up. But that's a whole other discussion, Tony, which I won't go down that path. But the reality is, the more and more we can develop national solutions to the things that we've got, the better I think we will come out of it. And so this new development has really taken the best of all the different states, and where they're at the moment is they believe they can plot a bushfire reasonably accurately up to 10 hours. Now, 10 hours doesn't sound like long, and obviously there's other things in the weather we can predict a lot further in advance than 10 hours. But if you can give firefighting crews 10 hours notification of which way a bushfire will go, again, taking into account the geography, taking into account what's happening in terms of the weather, the wind, the temperatures, and then start to direct your firefighting crews into those areas that they believe, that the modelling believes it will go, that's a huge development in terms of being able to head off those bushfires. It's mainly built on the back of something called the Phoenix Rapid Fire Bushfire Simulator. That was developed by the University of Melbourne initially, and then it's been a lot of extra information and extra work being put into that to arrive at this national model. We won't see it rolled out in the next few weeks. It's still got a fair bit of development to go. But I think the important thing here is that finally we're taking a national approach to it. And then with that national approach, I think we'll have better information. Will it prevent huge bushfires happening in the future? No, it won't prevent them, but it will allow us to be better armed to actually go and fight those.
Well, that'll be a great thing if it can help to improve the situation there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it will be. Now, in the latest plan for electric vehicles, there's a fair bit of talk in the media at the moment about what the Australian government is doing to encourage the take-up and how far behind Australia is in relation to this. So has the Australian government caught up to the rest of the world yet, do you think?
I don't think so. That's certainly my opinion, and certainly the opinion of some of the electric vehicle groups around Australia and members of those groups. Certainly there's a long way to go. There was some hope that maybe there were going to be some significant changes that were brought forward in this sort of map for the future, but unfortunately, no. And I mean, something like what the new US President Joe Biden did when he came in, and he said, we've got all these government vehicles, 635,000 government vehicles in America. Let's change all those over to American and let's make American manufacturers the only ones that can supply those. That decision alone was a significant decision for America. But in Australia, unfortunately, we've still got this concept of, yes, we've got a future fuel strategy. Here's the draft for it. And there's a few little things in there. So, for example, they're talking about partnering with private sector to invest in charging infrastructure. So that's nice, but private sector's been doing that already. NRMA's been rolling out charging infrastructure. Tesla has their own charging infrastructure. Even companies like ChargeFox are rolling out their own infrastructure. So while the government's been lagging, they've been doing already. They have done, or they're announcing in that, a trial of the electric car fleet for Comcar. So Comcar is the cars that provide cars and drivers for politicians. So that's a good step in the right direction. Moving to government departments, I think, would be a much better step. They're upgrading the Green Vehicle Guide website. Wow, gee, that's a big development there, Tony. They're updating a website. So this is a policy document about a future fuel strategy, and it says they can update a website. So I thought they could have done a little bit better than that. And they're asking energy agencies to consider options for managing potential congestion on the electricity grid. Well, I think we're a long way from getting congestion on the electricity grid at the moment, because we've only got 0.6% of new car sales electric, so we're a long, long, long way away from that. Unfortunately, it's not going down the path of direct financial help for motorists to purchase electric cars. They haven't even got targets, they haven't got minimum fuel emission standards. And I think part of it is driven by the fact that back in 2019, not that long ago, the coalition government really derided the Labor government because they had a plan. They had a plan of having 50% of new car sales being electric by 2030, which I think will happen anyway without any government intervention. So it's probably a bit rich for the coalition to really make a lot of fun about the Labor's war on the weekend, as they called it, back in 2019, and suddenly turn around in that same term of government and then go, actually, the Labor Party got it right. We should look at this a bit more. Around the world, unfortunately, fortunately for other countries, but there are a lot of incentives in place, and not huge incentives. I mean, I've told you before about my brother's just bought a little Kia Niro, which is not available in Australia at this stage, but in Canada, where my brother is, he bought that car mainly based on the fact that he can drive in the bus lanes in an electric vehicle. So there were no incentives, no financial incentives in place. There was nothing where he got paid to get it. But just the fact that he could reduce his commute time to work, that made a difference for him. In Norway, they've got subsidies there, and they're selling more than 50% of vehicles as new vehicles electric in that country. You've got registration support, various subsidies, interest-free loans, a whole range of things happening around the world. And in Australia, we're updating a website. So we've got a long way to go, I think, before we finally start to realise that. And one of the things that some of the electric vehicle industry associations are seeing in Australia is that some of the cars that are available around the world, and that one that I mentioned that my brother bought in Canada is a classic example. Some of those cars are not available in Australia because those manufacturers say, whatever there's no support for it in Australia, why would we go down the path of bringing those cars in, marketing those cars, when the government's not behind it, we're not going to get many sales, we'll go to a country where the government's supportive of it. So it's really a self-fueling prophecy, excuse the very bad pun there, Tony, that while you've got lack of choice and more expensive cars, the electric vehicle industry isn't taking off. But if the government made some decisions in the right direction, there'd be more cars, prices would come down, and the whole EV industry would take off. So, yeah, I hope to see a lot more for it. And let me leave you with this little thought, Tony. I can go and buy a $200,000 gas-guzzling, ridiculously large 6.2 litre engined ute, and I pay no luxury car tax on it in Australia. Yet I buy a $70,000 EV, which is obviously much better for the environment than a $200,000 humongous vehicle, and I pay luxury car tax on that $70,000 EV. Something's wrong there.
Yes, well, that's a very good comparison. And you'd have to be careful, I guess, about these incentives to go into bus lanes. You probably will increase your propensity to be hit by a bus.
Well, maybe, but often you see it, and I don't go to Sydney that often, but you'll be driving along in the streets of Sydney and you look to a lane to the left and you're in the taxi, think, why isn't the guy going in that lane? And then you realise it's a bus lane. Yeah. So it seems like a lot of bitumen sitting there just waiting for someone to use it. But again, that's a simple thing to do. And
it is.
I think it is encouraging people. It certainly encouraged my brother to do it.
It's a good idea. It's a fantastic idea. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be about money. I mean, government sometimes, and Angus Taylor's been saying, we shouldn't be directing people to buy one car. They should be able to choose whatever they want. But, and he doesn't say there's good value for money offering incentives. That's fine. Look at other ways that are clever, and the luxury car tax is a good example of that, or changing the luxury car tax so you can't buy a ridiculously expensive ute that uses a lot of petrol or a lot of diesel and still have no luxury car tax on that. Even the playing field out a bit at the moment. There's more incentive to buy a ute that uses a huge amount of petrol than there is to buy an EV. That seems wrong as well.
And look on the good side of the bus situation. If you get hit by one of those, you probably wouldn't know about it anyway.
That's right.
And you've been listening to Tech Talk on Binjang 91.5 with Matthew Dickerson and Tony Graham here. Signing off now, and it's back to all the great information and all the great music on Binjang.
All right. Thanks, Tony.